September 20th, 1988. A bright New Mexico morning. Eerily Calico, 19, a recent high school graduate, set off on her daily bike ride, like a ritual, on her pink Huffy bike with yellow cables. It was a ride she'd done countless times, along State Road 47 out of Belen. Her mother had planned to join her, but at the last minute, Tara insisted she go alone. She smiled, patted her seat, and pedaled away. That was the last confirmed sighting. By noon, she hadn't returned. Her mother called, and when no one answered, panic set in. At 1 p.m., Tara was missing. The community leapt into action. Roads were blocked. K-9 units roamed ditches. Volunteers scoured the roadside and adjoining desert. But no trace of Tara or her pink bike was ever found. A quiet morning vanished into anxious hours and then silent nights. Then, in July 1989, nearly a year later, something surfaced that shocked everyone. A Polaroid photo discovered in a Florida convenience store parking lot. It depicted a young woman bound and gagged, her resemblance to Tara undeniable to her family. The image quickly made national headlines. Tara's stepfather even described how a scar visible on the woman's leg matched Tara's identical mark. Scotland Yard experts confirmed the match, though the FBI ultimately could not verify her identity yet. For Tara's mother, Patty, that Polaroid was more than a picture. It was proof of life, disturbing proof. The photo ignited renewed investigation. Calls flooded in, news shows covered the case extensively, and America's Most Wanted aired the image, but it also brought confusion. Who else was in that photo? The terrified boy at her side. And why couldn't authorities locate the vehicle or person who dropped it? When the photo was first shown to Tara Calico's family, they didn't speak. They couldn't. Her mother, Patty Dole, stared at the image for 20 minutes before saying a word. The girl in the picture had dark hair, a familiar jawline, and a terrified but focused look in her eyes. A strip of black tape covered her mouth. Her hands were tied in front of her. She lay on a blanket in what looked like the back of a van or camper. Next to her, a younger boy also gagged and bound. Behind them, visible in the frame, a loosely stacked book titled My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews, a book Tara had owned. It was the smallest details that shattered her family most. Patty recognized the scar on the girl's leg, a faint cowlick in her hairline, even the way her hands curled when tense. Tara's siblings were torn. Some believed it was her. Some weren't sure. But for Patty, there was no question. "That's my daughter," she told police. "I know my child." The photograph had been discovered in Port St. Joe, Florida, more than 1,600 miles from where Tara disappeared in New Mexico. A woman walking into a grocery store saw it lying in a parking space, face up. She picked it up, saw what it showed, and ran inside to call police. By the time officers arrived, the van she believed had dropped the photo was gone. Witnesses said it was a white Toyota cargo van driven by a man with a mustache. A search was launched. Roadblocks were set. But just like Tara the year before, the van vanished without a trace. The photo was sent to the FBI. Scotland Yard in the UK even ran facial comparison analysis. Their conclusion: the woman was most likely Tara Calico. The FBI? They couldn't confirm. The photo was sent to forensic experts, handwriting analysts, and even scent dogs were given exposure to it for residuals. Nothing conclusive emerged, but public interest exploded. Tara's case, cold for 10 months, was suddenly front-page news across the country. News anchors replayed the discovery timeline on loop. Who was the boy next to her? Was she being moved from state to state in a mobile prison? What did My Sweet Audrina mean? Was it a taunt or a cry for help? The FBI investigated other missing children and compared them to the boy in the photo. Some believed he was Michael Henley, a boy who had vanished while camping in New Mexico only months before Tara's disappearance. But in a tragic twist, Michael's remains were found in 1990, just a few miles from where he vanished, ruling him out. That left the girl, and the van, and nothing else. The Calico family pleaded with the public, appearing on talk shows and in magazines. Tara's image was added to missing person registries nationwide. But every lead circled back to one thing: that one photograph. A 3.5 x 4.25-inch mystery frozen in time. A Polaroid that might have been dropped on purpose. Or by accident. A message or a memory. And then silence. No more photos. No more tape. Just the weight of a question that refused to be answered. What happened to Tara? By the time the 1990s arrived, Tara's name was known in households across New Mexico. Her image, wide smile, athletic frame, dark curls, was printed on flyers from Belen to Albuquerque. But the silence that followed the Polaroid discovery settled in like dust. No new clues, no trace of the pink bike, and no arrest. Her case, like so many, slipped into that cold and unforgiving category. Unresolved, unsolved, almost unspoken. The Calico family never stopped pushing. But in the eyes of law enforcement, momentum had stalled. And in a small town like Belen, momentum is everything. Locals, however, whispered what authorities wouldn't say out loud. They whispered about two boys, well known in town, sons of a former sheriff's deputy. Multiple witnesses later told private investigators that Tara was followed that morning on State Road 47 by a light-colored pickup truck, matching one known to belong to the family of those boys. One witness claimed to have seen the truck circling back, slowing, hovering behind Tara as she pedaled. But when those rumors reached law enforcement, nothing stuck. There was no solid evidence, no arrest. And in a town where power is inherited like property, some suspected the case had been quietly suppressed. Years passed. Then, in 2008, 20 years after Tara vanished, Valencia County Sheriff Rene Rivera went on record with a bombshell. In an interview with the Valencia County News Bulletin, he said his department believed Tara had been accidentally struck by several local boys in a truck, that they panicked, loaded her into the vehicle, and disposed of her body to avoid consequences. Rivera didn't name names. He didn't make arrests, but he said he was confident in the theory. The community was stunned, but not surprised. Tara's family was furious. If Rivera had such strong evidence, they asked, why hadn't charges been filed? Why hadn't the FBI stepped in? Patty Dole, Tara's mother, told reporters that such vague declarations only re-victimized the family. They didn't want rumors. They wanted justice. And without a body, without the bike, without a confession, they feared justice would always remain just out of reach. Privately, other investigators believed Rivera's statements may have been part of a strategy, an effort to pressure suspects or witnesses into speaking. If that was the case, it failed. No one stepped forward, and the boys, now men, lived their lives free, untouched by law, unnamed in public, protected by silence. Yet the case wouldn't die. New tips trickled in over the years. Psychics, anonymous letters, even one report of Tara being held in Mexico, all unconfirmed. In 2013, Sheriff Louis Burkhardt took over the case. Then, in 2019, the FBI announced a $20,000 reward for information leading to Tara's whereabouts or those responsible for her disappearance. It was the biggest push the case had seen in over a decade. But time has a way of erasing detail. Witnesses move, evidence fades, and even in a small town, stories get rewritten in the telling. Except for one. A woman on the east side of town, who requested to remain anonymous, told investigators in 2020 that she remembered a basement, a place she'd been taken by one of the suspects in the early 90s. She said it smelled like dirt. There were bike tires leaning against the wall, and a dented Polaroid camera sitting on a shelf. The basement was demolished in 1996. For Tara's mother, Patty Dole, the photo never left her side. She carried it in her purse for nearly 2 decades, creased, faded, protected in plastic. She kept it next to a copy of Tara's senior portrait and a tiny laminated square cut from her daughter's favorite book. Wherever Patty went, Tara went. She refused to move from their Belen home, fearing she might miss a phone call or a knock on the door. She said, "I just want her to know I'm still here, that I didn't give up." And she didn't. Patty turned her grief into something relentless. She worked with media, organized events, and campaigned for better missing person legislation in New Mexico. In 1991, she appeared on America's Most Wanted and spoke directly to the camera. "Whoever you are, wherever you are. If you have my daughter, let her come home. The episode reached millions. Leads surged, but no breakthroughs came. Still, Patty pressed forward. She distributed flyers at gas stations, placed ads in roadside diners, wrote letters to Congress asking for federal oversight in cold cases. But the years weren't kind. Tara's father passed first, quietly, and without answers. Then, in 2003, Patty was diagnosed with cancer. It moved fast. Family members recall her insisting, through pain and hospital visits, that the case must not die with her. In her final months, she wrote a series of public letters. In one of them, she said, "If I go before we find her, don't let her be forgotten. She is not a ghost. She is not a case file. She is Tara." In 2006, Patty Dole passed away. She never saw the van, never got another photograph. But she left behind something stronger than evidence. Unshakable belief that her daughter had not simply vanished. That someone in Belen, maybe someone her daughter knew, had done something terrible and that the town had helped bury it. After her passing, the case shifted. No longer driven by one mother's voice, it began to take shape in new ways, through online communities, Reddit threads, cold case podcasts, YouTubers and investigators who reopened the files in digital form. Satellite images of State Road 47 were examined frame by frame. Interviews resurfaced. Handwritten notes were decoded. And still, the photo remained at the center of it all, a question with no answer. In 2021, a New Mexico documentarian interviewed a retired officer who had worked the case in its early years. He said off the record, "We all knew where to look, but the badge didn't reach that far." His words caught fire online. Comments flooded in. A younger generation of digital sleuths began reanalyzing what was overlooked. Tire tracks, yearbook connections, police conflict of interest. They weren't constrained by jurisdiction or politics, just obsession. And somewhere in those threads, a strange image resurfaced. It was an alternate angle of the Polaroid, the same girl, same boy, same blanket. But this time, a mirror was visible behind them. On the bottom corner of the mirror, in the smudged reflection, was a face. The FBI said the image was too degraded to analyze. But the internet didn't forget. Through it all, the rumors, the theories, the documentaries, one thing never turned up. Tara's bike. It was a pink Huffy with yellow cables, custom fitted, instantly recognizable. And it should have been found. Dozens of volunteers had combed State Road 47, ditches, canals, fields, looking for tire tracks or pieces of reflective tape. Dogs sniffed every square mile. Helicopters scanned the land. But the bike was gone. If she had been struck, accidentally or otherwise, it would have been impossible to hide everything. Yet there was no blood trail, no evidence of impact, not even a dropped headphone. Tara had simply vanished from a straight stretch of road in broad daylight. Years passed, but interest never fully faded. In 2019, the FBI offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of Tara Calico or her remains. Their updated missing persons poster featured both her original photo and an age-progressed sketch, what she might look like in her late 40s. They included all identifying marks: a scar on her calf, a dime-sized birthmark on her back. They also acknowledged that the case had been linked, unofficially, to the Polaroid photo found in Florida. But even after 3 decades, the agency could only say, "We continue to pursue every viable lead." To the public, that sounded like a conclusion without commitment. But behind the scenes, investigators were weighing a theory that many had whispered for years. The photo was real, but it wasn't dropped by mistake. It was a message, either from the abductors or someone who wanted to rattle the case open. The My Sweet Audrina novel visible in the image had become a symbol in true crime circles. That book, about a young girl trapped in a house, with memories manipulated and a reality rewritten, felt eerily close to the fate many suspected Tara had endured. Had the book been placed there intentionally? A taunt? Or a clue? One retired agent said, "The presence of that book haunts me. That wasn't random. That photo was curated." Several online sleuths created overlays comparing the image of the girl in the photo to Tara's yearbook portrait. They aligned her brow arch, her cheekbones, even the way her top lip curled when nervous. The conclusion? It was her. And if that was true, then someone knew where she was, or where she had been. But the FBI never confirmed it. And Tara's case remained in limbo, somewhere between active and forgotten. Her family members moved away. Her house was sold. But on the highway where she was last seen, there's still a sign. 10 years after the first Polaroid was found in that Florida parking lot, another photo surfaced. This time in California at a construction site. It was 1999. A contractor cleaning out an abandoned mobile home claimed to have found a small locked box underneath a floor panel. Inside it were newspaper clippings from 1989, a keychain with initials scratched off, and a Polaroid photo, one the world hadn't seen before. In it, the same girl. Same black tape across her mouth. Same fear in her eyes. But this time, her hands weren't visible. Her hair was shorter, and she was alone. The photo was turned over to the police. The FBI analyzed it. Once again, no definitive conclusion could be drawn. It was too degraded. The image was never released publicly. But those who had seen the original photo were allowed to compare them. Patty's surviving family members said the resemblance was terrifying. It was her. Just older. Tired. Changed. One agent who reviewed the image described the background as industrial and possibly taken inside a shipping container. But the most unsettling detail? In the bottom right corner of the photo, barely visible, was a handwritten number. Number 2. As if it were part of a series. That same year, a local man came forward to police with what he described as a deathbed confession. From his uncle, a now-deceased New Mexico mechanic. In his final days, the man allegedly said he had fixed a truck for a kid who hit someone on a bike, and that they buried it somewhere off the 304. He never named the kid, and the tip wasn't enough for a warrant. But in 2021, the case caught fire again. A popular true crime podcast, Uncovered, Road 47, devoted 3 full episodes to Tara's case. They analyzed the timeline, the Polaroids, and even aired never-before-heard audio of a 1992 phone tip from an anonymous male voice. The caller claimed that Tara was kept for 3 weeks before something went wrong, that she had tried to escape, and the boy, now a man who had been watching her, had snapped. The episodes drew millions of downloads. But with that attention came something else. Fear. The podcast producer, based in Arizona, reported receiving threats. One of her team's researchers had their car broken into. A laptop containing audio interviews and files was stolen, but no other belongings were touched. She posted online, "I believe we hit a nerve." Then she went silent. Some believe the podcast uncovered something someone didn't want exposed. Others believe it was just a coincidence. But behind closed doors, law enforcement confirmed that they had reopened several leads based on the material presented. One of those leads, a parcel of land off Highway 304, sold 3 times in 35 years. A remote area known for sinkholes and sand pits. Exactly where that old mechanic claimed the truck had gone. As of 2023, that property was under review. But no dig had been approved. In early 2022, a determined college student studying criminal justice filed a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, request with the FBI, seeking access to all records related to the Calico case and the 1989 Polaroid. For months, there was silence. Then, unexpectedly, a heavily redacted document arrived, nearly 60 pages long. Most of it was blacked out. But buried on page 37 was a line that caught the student's attention. Polaroid number 1 exhibits potential evidence of a secondary subject in a mirrored surface. See Exhibit B. Exhibit B, the image itself, was withheld. But now it was official. The FBI had seen something in the mirror, just like internet sleuths had speculated for years. A shape, a figure, possibly a man, standing to the left side of the photo, partially visible in the corner reflection. No facial features were described. No identification made. But it confirmed something chilling. Someone else was in the room when the Polaroid was taken. That small detail reignited a new wave of amateur investigation. Image filters, AI enhancements, Reddit threads trying to recreate the angle, lighting, reflection. Theories exploded online. Some believed the figure in the mirror was the photographer. Others thought it was someone watching, perhaps the person in control. One chilling theory suggested that the mirror had been angled intentionally, not by mistake, as a message, clue left behind. The FBI has never commented publicly on the reflection, but the FOIA document proved they considered it relevant enough to log. What else, many asked, was being held back? Meanwhile, in Belen, the town that had once rallied to search for Tara, a quiet fatigue had settled in. Generations had passed. Businesses changed. But some of the original suspects, now older men, still lived in or near Valencia County, still drove the same backroads, still passed the missing person billboard on their way to work. One source told a podcast host anonymously, "There are people in Belen who know what happened. They're just too scared or too protected to say it." Several residents who lived along State Road 47 at the time Tara vanished reported being re-interviewed in 2022. FBI agents reportedly asked about vehicle sightings, noise complaints, and whether any sheds or wells on their property had been accessed in the fall of 1988. One man, now in his 70s, told local media he never stopped seeing that pink bike every time he looked out his window, but still no arrest, no confession, just silence. And the mirror, what it reflected, what it saw, and what it might say if anyone ever found the original camera. Tara Calico was more than a missing person case. She was a real girl, bright, athletic, fiercely independent. She had dreams of becoming a psychologist. She loved tennis. She listened to Boston and the Thompson Twins. She borrowed her mother's Walkman that morning, never knowing she'd never return. Her room, left untouched for years, still held posters of 80s bands and textbooks stacked neatly on her desk. To those who knew her, she was a lightning bolt, full of energy, opinion, and possibility. She wasn't the kind of person who just disappeared. And yet she did. What happened to Tara Calico remains one of the most haunting unsolved disappearances in American history. A 19-year-old girl vanished on a sunny road. No suspects charged. No bike recovered. Just whispers. And a photo that shocked a nation. That photo, now grainy and aged, still circulates on forums, crime blogs, and in the minds of those who remember. The girl with tape across her mouth, her eyes wide, the reflection in the mirror, the book on the blanket, the number on the second photo. All of it suggests a story far more complex and far more human than official reports have ever acknowledged. We may never know if Tara was in that Polaroid. We may never know who took it, but someone does, and someone still lives with the weight of that silence. If you were in Valencia County, New Mexico in the fall of 1988, if you knew someone with a light-colored pickup, or if you remember a young man talking about a bike accident they covered up, please say something. You can submit a tip to the FBI's Albuquerque field office or visit fbi.gov/Tara Calico. Your voice might be the one that breaks the silence, because someone out there still knows the truth, and Tara still deserves to come home.